Benjamin Netanyahu condemns Jeremy Corbyn over wreath-laying. Jeremy Corbyn was last night engulfed by worldwide condemnation over his visit to the graves of terror leaders linked to the Munich Olympics massacre. The Labour leader was attacked by the Israeli Prime Minister, relatives of the murdered athletes, Jewish groups and even his own MPs. And his attempts to quell the row backfired spectacularly when in an extraordinary interview he appeared to admit being present at a wreath-laying for Palestinian terrorists thought to have been behind the 1972 killings, but said that he did not think he was involved. "I was there because I wanted to see a fitting memorial to everyone who's died in every terrorist incident," he added. The attempted denial came despite pictures, revealed by the Daily Mail at the weekend, showing him beside their graves at a cemetery in Tunisia. His explanation was denounced by Jewish leaders and Labour MPs as an insult to the families of those savagely murdered. Israel's PM Benjamin Netanyahu declared that Mr. Corbyn deserved unequivocal condemnation for his presence at the service honoring Palestinian martyrs. But in an astonishing escalation, Mr. Corbyn responded to Mr. Netanyahu with a series of tweets challenging his treatment of Palestinians. And he accused the Israeli government over the killing of Palestinian protesters including dozens of children. In an article for the Mail today, Tory party chairman Brandon Lewis describes the revelations about Mr. Corbyn as an appalling new low and argues he is clearly not fit for public office. On another dramatic day yesterday, Mr. Netanyahu criticized Mr. Corbyn over his presence at a ceremony where a wreath was laid in memory of Palestinians suspected of being behind the Munich Olympics massacre. The Israeli PM accused the Labour leader of laying a wreath on the grave of one of those behind the 1972 atrocity in which 11 Israeli athletes were killed, after photos published by the Mail on Saturday showed him holding the floral tribute at the foot of the memorial. Writing on Twitter, Mr. Netanyahu said, "The laying of a wreath by Jeremy Corbyn on the graves of the terrorist who perpetrated the Munich massacre and his comparison of Israel to the Nazis deserves unequivocal condemnation from everyone, left, right and everything in between." The second reference was to a video which surfaced last week which appeared to show Mr. Corbyn likening the situation in the West Bank to occupations during the Second World War. Soon after Mr. Netanyahu's tweet, however, Mr. Corbyn hit back. He wrote on Twitter, "Israeli PM at Netanyahu's claims about my actions and words are false. What deserves unequivocal condemnation is the killing of over 160 Palestinian protesters in Gaza by Israeli forces since March, including dozens of children." The Labour leader then tweeted, "The nation-state law sponsored by Netanyahu's government discriminates against Israel's Palestinian minority. I stand with the tens of thousands of Arab and Jewish citizens of Israel demonstrating for equal rights at the weekend in Tel Aviv." Earlier, Mr. Corbyn had finally been forced to address the growing row during a visit to Walsall, but his attempts to calm the situation served only to inflame it. Asked about the controversy, Mr. Corbyn said, "A wreath was indeed laid by some of those who attended the conference to those that were killed in Paris in 1992. I was present when it was laid. I don't think I was actually involved in it, laying it. I was there because I wanted to see a fitting memorial to everyone who has died in every terrorist incident everywhere because we have to end it." Jewish Labour MP Luciana Berger last night hit back at Mr. Corbyn's attempted explanation. She said, "Being present is the same as being involved. When I attend a memorial, my presence alone, whether I lay a wreath or not, demonstrates my association and support. There can also never be a fitting memorial for terrorists. Where is the apology?" Here is how Jeremy Corbyn and Labour sources have tried to explain his presence at the wreath-laying in Tunis, when reports first surfaced in last year's election campaign. Jeremy Corbyn, "I was in Tunisia at a Palestinian conference and I spoke at that Palestinian conference and I laid a wreath to all those that had died in the air attack that took place on Tunis, on the headquarters of the Palestinian organizations there. And I was accompanied by very many other people who were at a conference searching for peace. The only way we achieve peace is by bringing people together and talking to them." Saturday, August 11, 2018, presented with photos of the wreath laying, A Jeremy Corbyn source said the Labour leader was at a Palestinian commemoration for those killed in the bombing in Tunis. The source insisted that the pictures did not contradict Mr. Corbyn's statements. And the insider said the picture showing Mr. Corbyn apparently joining in a prayer was simply of him copying the others out of respect. Monday, August 13th, morning, a Labour Party spokesman said, "We have got nothing to say beyond what we have already said." Monday, August 13th, lunchtime, Jeremy Corbyn, a wreath was indeed laid by some of those who attended the conference to some who were killed in Paris in 1992. "I was present when it was laid. I don't think I was actually involved in it. I was there because I wanted to see a fitting memorial to everyone who has died in every terrorist incident because we have to end it. You cannot pursue peace by a cycle of violence. The only way you can pursue peace is by a cycle of dialogue." Jennifer Gerber, director of Labour Friends of Israel, said, "Jeremy Corbyn's latest statement is a further insult to those savagely murdered at Munich and their bereaved relatives. He says he was paying respect to victims of terrorism when there is clear photographic evidence of him holding a wreath." Jeremy Corbyn's appalling actions, and Labour's attempt at cover-up, is another truly shameful day for the party he leads. Families of the athletes killed in Munich stepped up their criticism of Mr. Corbyn. Mihal Shahar, 69, who lives in Tel Aviv, lost her father Kohat Shor, a shooting coach, in the massacre. She told the Mail, "I think he should apologize. I think for the party it is best that he resign, but, whatever happens, he must apologize." Ilana Romano, whose husband Yosef, a champion weightlifter, was castrated and shot dead by the Munich terrorists, said, "Corbyn should have said, 'I'm sorry, I shouldn't have been there, and I apologize.'" A spokesman for Mr. Corbyn last night said, "Jeremy did not lay any wreath at the graves of those alleged to have been linked to the Black September organization or the 1972 Munich killings. He of course condemns the terrible attack, as he does the 1985 bombing. By a cycle of violence. The only way you can pursue peace is by a cycle of dialogue." But his remarks were met with a scathing response from anti-Semitism campaigners, who said he is still dodging questions. Ewan Phillips, spokesman for Labour Against Anti-Semitism, told Mail Online that Mr. Corbyn must be honest and admit the damage the latest scandal has done to his party. He said, "Jeremy Corbyn's claim that he wasn't involved in the